Welcome to the Coming Clean podcast with your host, Peter O. Estevez.
Hit a dash in my position, you will never last. Real talk, I had to get it from the mall. Real talk, now I'm vibing with a bankroll.
Good morning to a new episode of Coming Clean podcast. This is your host, Peter O. Estevez. Thank you and welcome. First, before we get started, I want to encourage you to go to my website, comingcleanpodcast.com, and register to receive the first chapter of my upcoming book, From Lies to Riches, to be released before the end of the year. But now let's go on with the show. Today's guest is Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani. Kristina is the co-founder of Mindvalley, which is a personal development, worldwide personal development platform. She is also a mother of two. She's an international speaker, a serial entrepreneur, an artist, a philanthropist. Well, one thing that is very dear to my heart, because I have the same passion, she's also the co-founder of Mindvalley Russia, a platform that brings personal development to her native country of Russia, to be able to empower, educate, and transform her fellow men and women. Kristina, welcome to Coming Clean Podcast, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your book coming out.
Thank you so much. Kristina, you're an amazing woman. I have a lot of regard and respect from you. I've been a member of the Mindvalley platform for since 2010, 2011, I can't remember, but it's been several years now. And since that, I have seen a tremendous shift in you, Kristina. For a while, you were known as Vision's wife. But you're obviously a lot more than that. You have given some empowering talks on stage. And you particularly talk about empowering women. In fact, you at one point you describe yourself as being in the background for 15 years in obscurity. Tell us a little bit about that. How does a woman like you, from 15 years of obscurity, come into the forefront and is able to command stages at a platform like Mindvalley with such an empowerment, with such a confidence?
Thank you for this question. And I would say that what I bring with me right now has always been with me. It's nothing new. I guess the only new thing that I have discovered is the desire to be more visible. But the ability to deal with that was always there, most likely. And to explain how it happened, I guess I have to go into the background. I'm sorry, I'll have to correct you. I'm actually Estonian and not Russian. But I was born in Soviet Union, so it's all fair. I was born and I grew up in Soviet Union, where it was one big mash of a country. So I did speak Russian from birth. And I also come from a fairly traditional background because Soviet Union was not exactly like the rest of the Western world, developed world. And I was given the blueprint for success like everybody else, probably in delivery ward. I was born and they said, here's how you live. And then I was living by this book, and that book said very clear things: be good, behave, study well, go to good university, get married preferably while you're in the university, because by the time you get to work, the best guys will be taken, have children, the typical thing. We all get that. I think men's and women's manuals are a little different, but essentially it's the same. So I was living by this manual, and one point in that manual was that woman has to support her man. And here probably the Russian background does matter. I'm not Russian ethnically or by my mentality or how I feel, but I was brought up in a Russian environment, obviously, so I understand this culture well enough. And it is true right now as well, the gender roles in the former Soviet Union and then the territory of the former Soviet Union is very strict. For example, I just moved back to Estonia and I'm pleasantly surprised that I don't have to pay my bills in restaurants anymore because everybody's very traditional here and I'm a woman. Not that I cannot afford, but it's just the tradition and it's cute. I don't mind. It doesn't demean my power in any way, but it comes also with other things, and one of them is the belief that woman has to support her man. And I remember a few years ago I was having a chat with a friend. I was actually friends with a guy. He is a big author and speaker in Russian-speaking environment, and his wife is also a very remarkable person, very smart. Good speaker, like really remarkable. And I jokingly said, hey, why don't you go on stage? We'll help you to build you the name and you'll be the celebrity. And I think you have as much to offer as your husband, if not more. And she was terrified. She said, no, but my role is to support the genius beside me. And that's something which I grew up with, and it wasn't even questioned. So I started my life understanding that this is my position. Russians had this, I have never spoken about that in English, so I hope I'll translate it properly, but in the beginning of the 19th century, there was a revolution and a lot of the revolutionary guys were sent off to Siberia and their wives are kind of romanticized as the proper wife. They just followed their guys, the men, their husbands to Siberia, into exile. So when we got married, it wasn't a question. I followed Vision to New York. I followed Vision to Malaysia. I didn't even ask myself, is this my place? Do I have anything to do? I gave up career. I did a very fast, being a perfectionist and a straight A student. Of course, I did a career here in Estonia very quickly. By the time I was 25, I had achieved a position that my European colleagues were achieving in their 40s and 50s. But I gave up everything. I gave up my work and I moved to New York, and I was no one in New York, literally no one. I couldn't find a job because of many reasons. One of them was the visa. Another one was that my university degree from Estonia didn't matter, and people were questioning my ability to speak in English because I came from a non-English speaking country. So I was a no one, and I had to rediscover myself from scratch, and it wasn't a problem. For me, this was natural. I am there to support my husband. When we moved to Malaysia, I didn't question if Malaysia was my environment at all, and I had hard times. I had hard times living there, but it was okay because that was what I was supposed to do. Like those wives of the revolutionaries of the early 19th century, I followed my husband anywhere he went, and it was my personal exile maybe, but it was fine. So this whole journey of being invisible in Mindvalley, being invisible in Mindvalley community was interesting, but I understand also that it was my own choice. It wasn't that the environment insisted that I do that. I chose that because I thought that was the natural way of things. But it was, as you said, you made this joke about that I used to be known as Vision's wife. It was these moments when I felt that people don't see who I really am that started shaking the ground and rocking the boat, and eventually everything came crumbling down because I'm pretty good as the woman to support the genius in my husband, but I'm actually not any worse as a unit by myself or a genius by myself. So I just finally found the courage, it wasn't even the courage. It finally dawned on me, hey, what are you doing? You want to be heard? Then come out and be heard and then speak.
So let me ask you a question. When you said something that is very interesting. You know, I was born in Mexico, raised in the States, and we have very similar cultural backgrounds. You know, the woman supports the husband. She's I don't necessarily agree with that. She almost sits in the background and raises the children. She takes care of the household. He takes care of the finances and takes care of the business. But what happens to that genius? What happens to that genius in that person? Okay, is it dormant? Is it developing? What happens? Is there resentments being created?
It's an interesting question. Again, I think it is always there, and I have been expressing myself, but just in certain conditions. We've always had this agreement, which wasn't written down in a way. I did take part in Mindvalley in the way it formed. I did express my genius in certain areas. I just made sure that my expressions did not dim the light of the person in the limelight. So I expressed myself in marketing mostly. Partially I expressed myself in Russian market. I guess these were the things which helped me stay longer in that background. Maybe if I didn't express myself in marketing and in Russian market, I would have exploded faster, maybe. I express myself in household as well, obviously. So there are avenues to express yourself. When you have energy, it has to go somewhere. And if it doesn't go where it will produce the most, it will go somewhere else and it will still produce things. I think and it's an interesting experience. I don't think I lost this time, but it gives me a lot of food for thought. And the latest discovery that I had was the idea that the background role is also important. So it's not so horrible that I chose to be in the background, that I chose to be the, Cardinal Greece, the person who actually has a lot of power, but nobody knows that. And I still do have a lot of power. It might not be legitimized, but I know just by the force of my character and now a relationship with vision, that I can do a lot. But the thing is that it's not the problem that I chose this position. And I have I have team. I might be visible, but my business, especially I'm talking about my Russian language business, it wouldn't be where it is without other people in my team, and I know it really well. So when I moved to Estonia, I actually brought along my, I wouldn't say second in command, actually the first in command, the person who essentially runs my Russian business. I brought her over to Estonia because I need her to be part of my life a little closer than somewhere in Malaysia. So the thing is that we personally understand the value of people who support us. But do the people who support us, do they see the value in their position? So I, as a person in the background, did not see the value of being in the background. So I didn't feel that I had the right to the things that we have achieved with Mindvalley. I felt it took me, it was a journey to accept that I did take part in creating Mindvalley. I always thought, I was irrelevant, so what? If it wasn't me, somebody else would be there. So taking this, taking a part of the glory is sometimes hard if you're in the background. And that was a more important struggle for me than the decision to come out into the limelight and come out from the shadows.
Let me ask you, I'm going to go back to the question of irrelevance. Irrelevance in the sense that the chef is nothing without the sous chef, right? And it's often say that behind a successful man, there's always a great woman. So obviously it's almost an unspoken agreement that in certain cultures, in certain marriages, in certain, we see it more prominently in the politician's life, right? A lot of politicians, other than the president, we see the senator, we see the congressman, we see the ambassador, but we never see the first lady of the ambassadors. Mm-hmm. So I get that point. But I think today we live in a society where women want to be seen, women want to be spoken, women need to participate. Okay, mm-hmm. Women want to be part of, and I think what we have realized, even as men, that women can hold great positions in the world, in the corporate world, in the business world, in the entrepreneurial world, in the government world, in every area. There seems to be an uprising for that. So how do we empower them today so they don't take a back seat? So they don't feel that their only role, is to support their man. So they don't wait 15 years to come out of austerity. And I mean a lot of love and respect.
You know, I believe that it is still the decision of every single woman, and sometimes our life takes us out of our comfort zone, and sometimes we have to wait until we are ready. And philosophically speaking, I think it is when you see the value of you in the background is when you are ready to take on something else. But that's philosophically speaking. You might become complacent in the background and say, this is the best thing I can do. But coming back to life sometimes forces you. I know your audience probably will be Americans. I'm European, not just European, but Eastern European with a funny, obscure history. But I was born in Belarus. And it's a very interesting country right now. I've always felt that in the contemporary world, women take on a lot of the responsibilities for the fate of the society where they exist. It's just that sometimes it's not visible and sometimes it's not appreciated. So why I'm talking about Belarus is that they are currently, it's a disputed situation. So they had elections in the beginning of August, and there was, they've had also a president for the past 26 years, the guy who refuses to give up power. So of course, every time there was election, there was this whole circus about the opposition. So one of the opposition candidates for this year was imprisoned right before election, obviously. I think all of them were detained. But one of them, his wife took on the role of being another presidential candidate. And she apparently, of course, there is no clear data how many votes there were, because the calculation was rigged. But apparently she got 80% of the votes. Of course, the guy didn't give up the power, so right now there's a huge mess going on. But what I'm saying is that, and some people are laughing at her and saying, oh, but she's a housewife. She used to be a primary school teacher, and when her husband was running for presidency, she was telling that she likes to do meat patties, and she's good at that. So people still laugh and throw that in her face, that she is a housewife. Who is she to be in politics? Go back to, do what you know how to do. And that's unfortunately, that's how we often treat women, and how women treat each other, and how women treat themselves. So I admire her because her husband was jailed, and she took on the position she didn't think of. It wasn't hers. It wasn't her choice. It wasn't her path. But she ended up in the situation where she's now essentially recognized as the president of Belarus by some European countries. It's a very curious situation, and I think it's a nice illustration of how life sometimes turns things around. And what I think is important here is not the fact that life threw her to become a president, where she didn't want to do that, but the fact that it's women who choose the role. And we choose how to treat us in that position, how to treat ourselves in this role. So here there are so many layers. On one side, it is a personal decision of every single woman. And it is about our women there to make this decision, to decide that whatever I'm doing is valuable, even if it is household, even if it is supporting my genius, or maybe I'm ready to claim the limelight. I'm ready to do something else. The next layer is that we as women have to support each other. And the ridiculous thing is that lady, the Belarusian woman president, she is often taken down by other women, because it's so easy to, we relate and we think that if anyone, I have the right to take you down because I'm a woman too. And especially in our part of the world, a lot of women are told to not deal with that things. It's not a girl's world. I made a post about Belarus, and my auntie from Belarus wrote to me. She said, Kristina, you're such a smart, beautiful girl. You're so far away from politics. Why do you even engage in that? And it's so funny how we women have this attitude to each other. What do we tell our girls? Like, you're a little girl, you shouldn't fight. Why? Why not? Just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't fight. And I'm a peaceful person, but there is a thing that no matter how peaceful you are, sometimes you have to express your viewpoint. You have to stand for your values. You can do it peacefully, but you have to be decisive. And often we think that not speaking up, not getting into a verbal fight or argument or a debate, we are showing our loving and peaceful nature, but in reality, it's apathy, it's fear, it's anything but love. So that's the next layer of us women supporting each other. And the third layer would be the rest of the world and the male world. And here, unfortunately, men are also scared and confused because of a lot of things. We women have been confusing through history. I am a feminist, by the way, but if you look at how we have been struggling and fighting for our rights, and right now I'm talking strictly about Western world because the rest of the world is so much more complex. There are many countries where the fight for the women's rights is still something which we in Europe maybe would have witnessed 200 years ago, not right now. But in the Western world, yes, initially we fought for the rights equal to the ones with men. We fought for the right to vote, to have all the jobs and whatnot. And then we started fighting for something more complicated, more complex, and this fight became more complex. And why is it a fight? And why do we antagonize ourselves with men? Why is it not about balance? And sometimes we are so confusing. And please, I might say something totally terrifying right now, but I think even the Me Too campaign must have made it so much more complex and complicated and confusing for men how to interact with us. Everything we do, we become more and more confusing to men.
And I agree with you because you talked about a couple of things, and one of them is, when you take the role of equality, okay, and men confuse it as you want to be treated equal. It's almost like what I've seen in society, particularly in the Western world, it's almost like men want to punish women for wanting to be equal, for wanting to be seen, okay? So we take away the chivalry, we take away the romance, we take away all the little perks that are natural perks of human connection, okay? And unconsciously, the macho society interjects and wants to penalize women for wanting to be seen. But there's also another point that I find interesting that I can't help but to think about the comment that you said that your auntie made to you about your post. As a woman, as a commander-in-chief of the household, okay, you have a very powerful role. And you have a very powerful role because your beliefs, your customs, your ideas are being transmitted to your children, because in cultures like in European cultures and in other countries across the world, you are the biggest influence in your children. Okay. So if you are transmitting your ideals, your beliefs, your cultural beliefs, how do we break away from those things that are dysfunctional and not carry them on into the next generation?
I like cultures and cultural traditions because they're the juice of a lot of things. I love Christmas here, and I love my saris in Malaysia and Indian weddings. I don't like dogma that comes with a lot of cultures and religions. And I think I think the most okay, it's such a complex question. I'm trying to explain it. I haven't verbalized this thought before, so bear with me. I believe in seeing the essence of things and generally phenomena. The essence, not the pinnacle. The essence of religion is spirituality, connection to God, whatever God is. Often we fight and argue about the surface. Dogma is usually the surface. The essence is separated from that. The same with culture. Also, I do like the surface, but the culture is not about that. It's about feeling the essence. When it comes to children, I think the essence is to teach them that they choose their own world. On one side, they choose what to believe, what supports them, what makes them happy. And also another important thing to teach the children is that you have to have the responsibility for your choices. So yes, you have the freedom to choose, but you also, whatever you choose, the consequences are going to be your responsibility. So together with that freedom to choose, I give you the responsibility for your choices. And no matter what I pass them, because obviously I want them to do things like I did, and I want them, they speak Estonian and they're exposed to a lot of things. And you might say that they're learning certain ideas about, let's say, even politics or religion from me, because obviously they are learning. But if that learning comes together with the freedom to break away from my opinion, then I'm fine with that. So just to illustrate this, last year for Christmas, Hayden said he wants money rather than gifts because he wants to buy a computer. And I arranged the money for him, money gifts. I told everyone in the family, Christmas gifts, only money. Hayden is trying to save up for a computer. So the question was, what computer do you want to buy? And he wanted to buy Dell. Just for you to understand, everything in Mindvalley and Lakhiani family and household has been Mac for the past 15 years. We do not touch Windows. and that was very interesting. Mission was immediately like, Hayden, why? There were such good Macs. And Hayden said, I did research. I like to play games and I want that because it has graphics and whatnot. So he explained to that. And as a parent, my personal journey was to be okay with him choosing something different from me. My daughter, every time she dresses, I buy her such beautiful clothes, but she has this different style of dressing, very different from me. And every time I want to say, come on, can you? And then I remind myself, this is her choice. I want her to express herself the way she wants, no matter how I feel about that. And the responsibility is important here. Because the responsibility is still on you. If you choose to buy a computer that we don't understand anything about, so you will have to fix it by yourself. You'll have to learn it all by yourself. And it's okay with me. If you want to dress the way you do, if you feel uncomfortable because you're dressed funky, that's you facing the consequences of your choices. I can advise, but I'm not going to force you. So the same is true about anything, however I interact with children. And I know, I've witnessed that they do take over some of my feelings and emotions and beliefs without questioning. They do that, I've noticed. But I'm fine with that as long as they generally have the habit of questioning things and making their own choices. So what I'm trying to say is that my political views, my religious background, my cultural background, my cultural traditions or non-traditions, it is the surface. The essence is your ability to question, your ability and willingness to make choices, and your willingness to face the consequences of your choices and to be responsible for them. This is the essence. Just another illustration, I take my children every Saturday to soup kitchen to cook soup and give it away to the less fortunate people. And they may say, why do we do that? Right now, they don't question because they're young, but when they're teenagers, they may say, I don't want to waste my Saturday like that. And I'm okay with that. Do I force them to do that right now? I don't force them, but I'm quite convincing. So as long as they have the choice to not do that, and as long as because if they tell me they don't want to do that, I'll ask them, what good are you going to do for the society? Choose anything else, but you have to do something good. Until they're 18, I have the right to demand certain things, but I don't mind that, and I'm okay with that, as long as they understand the essence of this phenomena. And the essence of this phenomena is that they still have the freedom to choose contrary to my choice. So coming back to men and women, I love chivalry, and I miss the fact that men are afraid to be nice to women. Partially afraid because they don't know how it will be understood. Partially maybe because now they have the freedom not to be so nice to us, or maybe because they want to punish us. I do not know. The thing is that, why do we get insulted? Do we take the offense, or is it okay? We can get offended by so many ways. Right now, I'll bring such a terrible example that a lot of women in the West are not going to like me, and I'm fine with that, because what I'm going to talk about is something that I believe in. I was attending some event, and I came rather late, so some of the guys were a little too drunk. And one of the guys was not nice to me. He allowed to touch, he gave himself permission to touch me in a way I didn't want.
He was inappropriate.
Inappropriate, yes. And he did say some things which I didn't enjoy at all. And, you know, I'm fine with him doing that because I got up and I said, I'm leaving. I don't like it and I didn't give you this permission. And I'm fine that he made an attempt because I also can say, no, stop. I'm getting out of this situation. And I'm okay with people making mistakes as long as I remember that I have the power to say no, to say stop, to draw the line. But I would be terrified of the world where men were scared to make a move on me, to maybe be a little bit inappropriate. I can tell them I'm not fine with that. And I'm not talking about rape. I'm talking about regular social
boundaries. Yes, boundaries. Yes.
So I would be terrified if men didn't want to make a move on me because they're afraid. Because they're always waiting. I love 19th century literature, British literature, but I don't want to live in the prudish world where a man and a woman could be together only if they're moving and they wouldn't be allowed to stay together in one room. I want to sometimes be a little bit obstinate and a little bit naughty and sometimes do things which, especially now that I'm single. But the thing is that I'm okay with that because I know the strength in me. And please don't misunderstand because the problem is that sometimes we go into extremes. Of course, I don't support rape. And it is totally out of the question. But remarks, weird looks, weird words, occasional wrong touch, I am okay with that because I can say no. It isn't pleasant to me, but I'm going to keep moving and keep living. And if the guy that I like doesn't want to do that because he's afraid, that would be a tragedy for me. And I do not know if I'm explaining it properly.
No, you are.
We should give our contemporaries permission to be wrong from time to time. You cannot live in the world where you're afraid to make a wrong move, to say a wrong word. It's not just about relationship between a man and a woman. It's also about our political views. It's also about how we speak on internet, how we take sides in different issues. This whole cancel culture. Yes, sometimes people have views which are outdated or maybe they're essentially wrong, but let's not cancel all their achievements because they say something which we don't agree with. It's so stifling right now that I don't dare to express myself anymore. The other day I was joking, I'll stop speaking English because so many words have become taboos in English. I do the soup kitchen, I use the word poor. And I understand why people don't like the word poor. I understand that. But I also want to have the permission of the world to sometimes make a mistake.
Very empowering. Wow. You could have not explained that any better. And I completely agree with you, Kristina. I think that we have become so politically correct about everything that we do, that we say, that there is nothing that we can say. Okay?
Yeah. But do you know how evolution works? Because something is different. It's the mutations that actually helped us move and become better. If we don't dare to make mistakes, if we taught children to learn to speak, to learn to walk without making mistakes, they would never learn.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest problems that we're having in America, okay, a country that I live and I reside in, but I see our political system being so divided. And a lot of that has to do exactly what you say, with not giving ourselves permissions to say something wrong or something right. Okay, that is, we are so divided that we cannot agree on anything. And you could have not given a better example. You as a woman has a right to be able to deny who you want as a man or a woman to touch you, period. End of story. But that should not allow us or give us or make us all refrain from expressing who we are. And the reality is that today we don't feel I have to be very careful, and I did it early on in our interview. I asked you if there's anything that we didn't want to go into, right? Because I don't want to offend. But we go tippy-toeing through life and we're not living, we're just surviving, we're existing. We're not participating, we're listening and watching. and we're agreeing or disagreeing or walking away from, but we're not coming to any type of conclusions by not being part of a discussion that can give us an opportunity for me to learn about you and you to learn about me and others to learn from one another. I want to talk a little bit about something, about a common, you have such a interesting humor. You have an incredible humor. And but you talked, one of your comments was that good girls go to heaven and bad girls go everywhere. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's actually not even my phrase. I heard it somewhere. I do not know.
But you used it. I know it's not your phrase, but you used it recently in one of your posts.
It's because I was a good girl all my life. I'm a single child, and I had all the brunt of the responsibility for the two family lines, not to end in nothingness. So I had to do everything correct and everything right. And being the good girl took me where it took me. At some point, I realized that I'm not quite happy. And I think this is something that a lot of us understand. As I said, we're giving this manual how to be a successful man or a successful woman. Usually they're a little different depending on your country and your gender and a lot of other things. But you get this manual and you live your life following certain success rules. And we all understand success the same way. Usually if you show a person to a bunch of people, we all pretty much similarly say, this is success, this is failure, this is success, this is failure. When it comes to you, it's a slightly more complex thing. And usually, our idea of our personal happiness and the society's idea of success are not exactly the same. So what happens is that once we follow the success, because we want to have the love and appreciation of the people around us, we want to be successful. We occasionally have to compromise on certain things which make us happy, because they are the ones which clash with the society's idea of success. The very simple examples would be women who don't want to have children, men who don't want to go into business who are artists, people, let's say gay people, unfortunately still it is the situation. A lot of the situations where you are doing something different from what society thinks is good for you will mean that you have a choice, either be happy or be successful. That's why good girls are the girls who follow the success model. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times, if you want to be happy and to live by your own rules, and I'm not referring to my program, but I am, if you want to live by your own rules, you will have to break those ideas of success, and that is something which we call bad. You will have to divorce occasionally. I'm bringing my own example. You will have to leave a good paying, stable job occasionally to start maybe a risky, inexplicable business. You might want to give up the financial abundance to express yourself artistically. You might want to give up the creation of a family and having children to express yourself sexually in a different way. And it's all fine. The thing is that often to be happy, you have to give up the hope to be right or to be good. Howard Becker has this brilliant saying, which you can apply to anything. He says, you can be right or you can be rich. But it works also, you can be right or you can be loved. Often, why do we fight with the loved ones? Because we try to prove them that we are right. You can be right or you could be happy. So that's the thing. Good girls are doing what is right. Happy girls often have to break rules and they become bad girls. So good girls go to heaven, bad girls go anywhere they want.
Kristina, let me ask you a question. And I'll tell you this from a personal experience. I'm also a divorced father that raised my son on my own. You know, been divorced for about 12 years. Well, what is it better? Is it better to stay in a marriage or a situation where you are unhappy and spilling that over into your children for them to visualize what is an unhappy couple together living by society's standards or what it should be, or for a healthy divorced family that still interacts with one another? And I see the example of you and Vision. You know, you parent together, you travel together, you enjoy it, and it seems to me, in my opinion, that you guys live a very healthy life. So what is wrong with that in our society? What is wrong to accept that? You know what? Vishen and I as a couple don't work together, but we work together as parents. What is wrong with that in society? Why is that so unacceptable?
First, I want to, because you made this question about children to some degree. So here I want to quote, loosely quote Dalai Lama. I had a chance to ask him a question because I was working with refugees in Asia, and I was building Mindvalley on the other side. So the refugees, I saw a lot of suffering. And in Mindvalley, we were building the company to teach people how to live happy, successful lives. So in my brain, I had a constant cognitive dissonance. How can I work with people who have gone through huge personal tragedy and losses and remember the fact that I am supposed to be happy? So I asked that question of Dalai Lama, and he gave me a remarkably simple answer. He said, Kristina, you can't help anyone if you're not happy. So no matter what the environment, if you're unhappy, the only thing you can do, which is right, is to restore your happiness, whatever changes that may mean. And it is not even for the children that you have to get out of the marriage. It is for you. It is for your colleagues. It's for your loved ones. It's for anyone. If you are unhappy, you should not be there. Of course, you could try to work on the marriage, obviously, and I'm not saying that you have to all leave. Answering the second half of your question, I want to quote loosely again Dan Savage. He's a TED speaker, and he said an interesting thing. He said, when a world-class athlete loses a game, he's still a world-class athlete. When a world-class chef burns an omelet, he's still a world-class chef. If a person is mistaken in a relationship, let's say they cheat or divorce, we write them off as a bad person. And that's a very tough model to fit. So I'll give you an example of how it sometimes works. We find a person that we fall in love with, we make a family or any kind of commitment. But life is long, and we are alive. And except for very few cases, because apparently monogamy is the most complicated form of human relationships, there comes a time where we might find someone else attractive. And I'm not saying that means that we have to cheat, we have to leave the family, we have to divorce. No. But what I'm asking is, just on the human level, what are your choices? As a society, do we accept anything in that case? If you leave the family, people are going to be nasty to you. If you cheat and don't leave the family, people are still going to be nasty to you. So the only choice we mere mortals are left with is to bury the feelings, not acknowledge them, hide them, never let anyone know. Try to get through that on your own. Wow. And try to fall in love again with your loved one. We are not even allowing, as a society, a healthy conversation about something that happens to most people. I'm not talking about 50%. I suspect it's 90% of people who are in a committed relationship that have felt attraction at one point or another to someone else. And we as human. A society,
we are human.
Yeah. And we as a society do not have a healthy choice for us mere mortals, unfortunately. So what we do is that we choose between leaving the family, leaving the committed relationship, and being considered a failure, because unfortunately our society still considers end of a relationship a failure, or ruining our psychological and emotional health, because the opposite is exactly that. Any psychologist will tell you that not acknowledging what you feel, trying to force it out, trying to hide it, trying not to deal with that is not a healthy choice. We have to be permitted to talk freely about what we feel. But it is a scary thing because society doesn't give us scenarios. And when it comes to relationships, Catherine Woodward-Thomas is the best person to describe that part. She says that, and I love this idea by her, is that, why do we measure the success of relationship by its length? Why don't we measure the success of relationship by how much has been created within this relationship? How much the people have grown? How much they have changed or evolved or changed the world around them? So a lot of people, because we have very limited models for relationships, we have a lot of choice for how we eat, how we exercise, how we work, where we live. But we have no choices when it comes to relationship, none at all. Even being in a same-sex partnership is still, at least on the level of on the legal level, is still disputed in the majority of the world. Even though as humans we understand that gay people should be allowed to form families with gay people. But it is not a universally acknowledged right. So we do not have any choice in relationships, not at all. And with that, we also are taught to measure their success by their length. So what happens is that people ignore how they feel, they ruin their emotional health, and they keep living in a unfunctional marriage for decades, because that's how we measure success. And it's a sick situation, and it might have been okay in the old days where we lived until 40, 50, 60 years, where we did last only approximately as long as a relationship would last, we as an animal, and life was different and it was more complicated, and marriage was not about love, never was about love. It was about social position, especially like if you look at developing countries, you know that in India marriage is not so much about love, it's about your social status in the world.
Yeah, social economics.
But now we live in a free world. We're different. A woman doesn't need a man to even have children. She can have children without being in a committed relationship, technically speaking. A woman doesn't need a man to survive, to be accepted by the society, to make a career. So the only thing that's left for the relationships is love. And if that love changes, why do we have to force it?
I absolutely. As a matter of fact, you had a live conversation, I believe it was with Catherine, and it was like it was a conversation that left me at odd in the sense that I began to question my sense for relationships, and it was what a burden it is to put your whole life, your whole love, your whole commitment in one individual to make you happy for the rest of your life. You know, what an obligation, what a responsibility for me to take on marriage and to say, till death do us part, okay?
And that death doesn't rush to come these days, by the way.
Absolutely, it takes a long time to get here. So when I thought about that, it was that conversation that I thought about, wow, what a powerful way of questioning marriage. You know, I'm not saying that I'm a traditional person and I love the institution of marriage, but I also have been in a relationship where I wasn't happy, where I wasn't, where maybe somebody else had caught her eye or my eye or whatever, right? But how is it that we are able to transcend that? You know, if I tell my partner, you know what, I find myself attracted to another individual, how is my partner going to react? How do we handle those situations? Why don't we talk about those situations?
So my answer to that would be that I don't know the answer, because I'm trying to redefine relationships for myself as well at this moment. And I don't know the answer. And I think I don't know the answer because we as a society don't talk about that. For us to find the answer, we have to make the mistakes. We have to try it with each other. We have to negotiate. We have to talk. It's the same with relationships, with feminism in general, with gender balance. We have to start talking and trying to not fight who wins, but actually trying to figure out how to coexist, how to be in balance. And I think that the biggest problem is right now we equate relationship with ownership. And Catherine did give a really interesting thought, which I was digesting for a while. She said that relationship is about agreements, not ownership. And I get it. We have agreements with children, we have agreements with our colleagues, with our friends, and with our partners as well. But the problem is that we often, when somebody is, when we love someone, we call them mine. And that goes to every single level. Not just who you like or who you spend time with, but what do you think? How do you spend your time? What do you do? We want this report and this responsibility. So obviously, if something belongs to you, you don't want that something to belong to someone else as well. It's interesting. I always wanted to have 2 children so I could just understand what it means to love 2 people equally. And I don't love them exactly the same way, but it is equal. And I am traditional as well. And I know that when I love a man, I would feel hurt if that man loved someone else as well as me. So I don't have an answer. I'm okay with people being in open relationships, in polyamorous relationships. I'm okay with people doing that. I do not think I'd be able to be in this kind of relationship. But I know that on a personal level, I have to learn to let go of the person that I love and not to take them as my property.
Wow. Powerful statement, Kristina. Kristina, tell us where you're at with Mindvalley Russia. How is it doing? What impact have you made in the world? And what projects are you working on today?
Mindvalley Russia is doing well. We've been growing. And we've been growing wide and deep, and it's been an interesting journey. I actually learned a lot of lessons through my Russian business because I had a business partner, and 5 years ago we nearly bankrupted our successful business, and I lost the biggest author and my business partner, and it was an interesting journey. And then after we separated, I was trying to reinvent Mindvalley in Russian market. But lately, I started feeling that it's about the mission and about doing what you're supposed to do. So I tried to simplify the processes and to leverage on the fact that we are part of the bigger Mindvalley. So we've integrated as much as we could over the past few years, and it's bizarre how it works in life, but life is full of contradictions. If you love someone, you have to let them go. So when I was trying to define Mindvalley Russian as something very unique and different, we struggled so much, and I ended up just admitting that why don't we allow ourselves to be a part of a bigger Mindvalley and to completely merge with the bigger Mindvalley and become just a department. The moment we did that, we suddenly started to see how unique we are and how special we are. But that was through admitting that I'm also part of something else. So it's coming back to that idea that I shared earlier. Sometimes when you admit the value in your position of a second in command or in the background or in the supportive role, that's when you get the opportunity to become the center of everybody's attention, to be in the center of in the limelight and in the center of events. It's like in Alice in Wonderland, no, actually in Through the Looking Glass, that book by of Alice. They have this funny moment where she's trying to move behind the looking glass, and this queen tells her, you have to run really fast if you want to stay in the same place. And if you want to move somewhere, just slow down. But it's ironic, but that's how, I think Lewis Carroll was so genius. It's ironic how it works. But in life, often, if you want to succeed, you have to stop resisting. You have to stop, you have to stop working so hard and start floating. And I truly believe in that. I'll bring a little gory example, but when I was delivering Hayden, I was taught the breathing techniques, and it's ironic that when you feel pain, you want to contract and squeeze and resist, but it's when you relax is when the pain subsides. So I think everything in life is this contradictory, and it's cute and it's cool.
And it's cool. Kristina, what projects are you working on today?
I am building my own speaking and author career. It's been interesting. And considering that I've succeeded in Mindvalley, I'm sometimes puzzled why am I so helpless in my own business. But they say that, I don't know the English word, English proverb for that, but in Russian they have the saying that a cobbler has no shoes or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest project right now. It's my biggest passion project, but I also am very passionate about us growing in Russian market. we have to grow our numbers a lot, because numbers do represent how much you actually change in the market. So I want to grow a few times before I start inventing other things. And I have a message that I want to share. So I want to grow my own following, because I feel that I'm different, and I feel that there are people who need that.
Absolutely. Where can people find you, Kristina?
On my Instagram, mostly Kristina Mänd.
Kristina Mänd.
Yeah.
Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani, an artist, a speaker, an author.
My handle is actually Kristina Mänd, M-A-N-D, because that's my family name, Estonian. It's actually Mänd. It has dots, but you wouldn't put dots in
Right.
URL.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm an everyday life philosopher. That's what I think I am.
Kristina, thank you so much. Again, Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani, speaker and author, philanthropist, co-founder of Mindvalley, and a mother of two. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on another episode of the Coming Clean podcast. Make sure to join Peter and his next guest on a brand new episode as we continue changing and impacting lives across the world. Share this episode with a friend, follow, subscribe, and leave a review.
Boy, I had to get it fast. Get a dash in my position, you would never last.